On February 24th, 2026, a pretty unusual post appeared on X. It wasn't a leak or a piece of breaking news from a journalist. It was an invitation. News agencies picked it up, but the source was unmistakable. It was the Central Intelligence Agency. For the first time in years, the CIA made a direct public call in Farsi, reaching straight into the heart of Iran. They weren't just asking for tips, they were signaling that they were open for business. Within hours, the CIA's own newsroom confirmed the campaign was even larger than we thought. They released a set of text-only videos and infographics, not just in Farsi, but in Mandarin and Korean. The message? We hear your voice and we want to help. But it's the how that's really fascinating. The agency didn't ask for a phone call or an email. They released a masterclass in digital hygiene. It was a step-by-step guide on how to become a ghost. They told Iranian citizens to stay off their office computers, to use disposable, clean devices, and they urged them to use incognito or private modes on their browsers, and most importantly, to download the Tor browser. Their destination? A dedicated portal on the dark web with a .onion address designed to bypass Iranian state's Great Firewall entirely. At first glance, this looks like a high-tech SOS, a desperate move by an agency trying to get eyes inside a closed-off regime during a massive internal unrest. But as we dig into the archives this week, we realize this isn't just a response to a crisis. Is this a new desperate gamble, or is it simply the latest, most sophisticated iteration of a 75-year-old playbook? A playbook that started not with social media, but with a network of front organizations known as the mighty Wurlitzer. Today we're going to go behind the scenes, take a look at the secret history of the tools that the CIA is asking Iranians to use. Tools like Tor and Signal, and how the U.S. government spent decades building a digital crowbar to pry open the world's most authoritarian states. This one gave me a good idea. All right. To understand why the CIA is telling people in Tehran to go down, Tehran, I don't know why I say that. I can't say Tehran. Tehran?
Tyrannosaurus.
I always feel like I'm from Texas when I say it. So to understand why the CIA is telling people in Tehran to download a specific piece of software, we got to go back to 1995. We're going in the Wayback Machine. Okay. Specifically a room in a naval research laboratory in Washington, D.C. So up to this point, the internet's been like this hippie dream, like, hey, this is going to free us all and we're going to share information and it's all going to be amazing. But for the Pentagon and the Navy, like, they had other plans. It was kind of a surveillance trap, right? They didn't design this just to connect people on Facebook.
It's very sneaky of them.
Yeah, crazy, right? Who would have thought that they would have designed the internet to be a spy tool?
Well, wasn't the internet, the backbone of the internet that was released to everybody, wasn't that created by DARPA?
Al Gore. Well, it was before, it was even previous to DARPA. It was ARPA before they got the D.
Oh, okay.
It was ARPA.
The big D.
They got the big D. It was called ARPANET. Like the original internet was called ARPANET.
Okay.
So the reason why they did it, think about this. If you're a CIA agent, you're in deep cover, you're a diplomat in a hostile country, say Iran, every time you log onto the internet, it leaves like this little digital breadcrumb, right?
Yeah. Carbon footprint.
Yeah. So bad guys, they don't need to read carbon footprint. We got to find a better name for that.
Digital footprint.
Digital footprint. There is a name for that. Thank you. That's why I got you here. So all the bad dudes, they don't need to like crack your encrypted messaging or anything like that. They just look at the traffic analysis. They see who it is to and from. They just check the metadata. They see if it's from like a safe house in Beijing. They follow that to a server in Langley. Like, you're fucked.
Yeah.
You're done.
Because they can trace back the origin. They know where you're at.
Exactly. Like, hey, this guy's a spy. Enter a man named Paul Syverson. Okay. Syverson was a military mathematician, and he assembled a core team including David Goldschlag and Michael Reed. Their mission was to defeat the traffic analysis. So their solution was something called an onion router, or the onion router, Tor for short. It wasn't just a piece of software. Like it was a parallel infrastructure entirely. So imagine this detailed shell game. Your data is wrapped up in multiple layers of encryption, like an onion. So the onion, they bounce randomly through a network of servers. No single server knew exactly where the information's coming from or where it's going to. So it made it really hard for a foreign government to find out exactly who's who and where it's coming from, right? So that was their solution to give to the spies and the diplomats. Here, use this, right?
And for anybody who's listening, this is different than a VPN. So a VPN is actually a group of server or a main server that's managed by an entity that will encrypt it on the way in and on the way out so that you can't track. This is completely different. This actually is randomized and bounces it off different servers.
And the VPN's not even like where you can't track it. It's just you can't really see.
You just can't really. Yeah,
Exactly.
you can't track it from the midpoint if you were a hacker.
Exactly.
But it can be tracked from beginning and end.
So by the early 2000s, the project was a well-funded military initiative backed by DARPA. It got the big D at that point, and the Navy to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And way back when, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year for software is a pretty big deal, right?
Yeah.
But Cybersyn and the Navy, they hit this logical paradox. If only spies and diplomats are using it, it's not a big
Then everybody knows
it's the same pinpoint, right?
Right.
Like, spy!
Yeah.
So, to protect their own needles, so to speak, which would be their spies or diplomats, the military realized they had to build a digital haystack. They needed a massive, diverse user base to hide it. So, in other words, we need everybody using this. So, if everybody's using it, nobody's using it. It looks like nothing. So, they needed activists, journalists, regular citizens, and even criminals. Like, think of Silk Road. Do you remember Silk Road?
Yeah.
They used Tor.
I knew somebody who actually shopped for things on Silk Road.
Drugs?
Things, John. I'm not a snitch. That's all I'm going to say is I'm not a snitch.
Okay, copy that. All right. So this required a pretty radical shift in branding. So in 2004, the military project spun off into an independent nonprofit called the Tor Project, led by a cryptographer named Roger Dingledine. That's a real name.
That's a great
Roger Dingledine?
Yeah.
So his name was Dick Dingledine?
No, Roger.
That's Richard.
Roger.
Close enough. I'm calling him Dick Dingledine.
Hell yeah.
That would have been solid. So Roger Dingledine and co-founder Nick Mathewson, right? Those are the guys that started the Tor project. To the public, it looked like it was a clean break, but the Electronic Frontier Foundation provided initial funding, helping to mask the technology's true origins and rebrand it as a tool for civil liberties.
Of course.
Where have we heard that before?
This is the tool you're going to use if you don't want the government knowing what
If you want to protect our sacred democracy.
Yeah, it's safer if
It's
you
safer.
Trust us.
Use this. It's for your
the
safety.
feds aren't going to be able to.
Oh my God, dude.
No.
When was this?
This is in the 90s. This might have been 2000 at this point.
Oh, boy.
2004. So no, like they don't. So their whole idea was, we're going to take this government project, but again, if everybody's in the government's using it, it's a Fed tool, right? So we need to make sure that the government didn't put it out there for everybody to use. They created a shell company. They have the Electronic Frontier Foundation providing money for the Tor project. The Tor project was supposed to be just this thing that Roger Dingledine came up with. Like, hey, I'm giving
open
this
source.
I'm giving this to you for everybody. They didn't know that Roger Dingledine's in bed with the government.
Old Dick Dinkelberg or
Dick
whatever
Dingledine.
his fucking name is.
Mr. Dingledine is a Fed,
What
so
a
to
dick.
speak. Like, he's not officially a Fed, but he's a Fed, right? So he comes out, look, I'm giving this to the world. And everyone's like, oh, that's amazing.
Great.
So the plan for this, which is oddly similar to so many other things, is basically just to hide this and run this in plain sight.
Exactly. So so again, they labeled this as anti-establishment and radical.
Sure. You get more buy-in that way.
Yeah, exactly. Like all these rebel hackers and everything think they're being safe.
Do you think it's also a way too to, I mean, if you advertise, okay, so this is all created and being run by a Fed, so to speak, right? Not actually a Fed, but, and you market it as anti-establishment, it's almost like what we found out they did with 4chan, where you're creating this place where anybody who's anti-government or doing things like you can now monitor those people at the same time as carrying out your spy activities, right?
Yeah. It's
It's not a bad plan.
No,
it's a fantastic,
It's a really good plan.
Like I said, these guys, like
Dinkelberg.
these guys knew what they're doing. Like this wasn't some amateurish move. It was brilliant. Like I had no idea about this till I read this book called Surveillance Valley by Joshua Levine. Fantastic book if you ever want to read it. I'll try to put a link in there somewhere. It's a great book. So yeah, this worked. People, like all kind of radical hackers, are getting on thinking they're sticking it to the man.
Yeah.
But just like I say with everything, follow the money, right? So despite its nonprofit status, the project remained on a financial tether. For most years, federal contracts from the Pentagon and the State Department and the CIA-linked organizations accounted for 90% of Tor's operating budget. So if you were to dig below the surface, but this is 2004, people weren't really doing that.
If we had Ian Carroll doing this in 2004, we would have known.
Right. So if you just look below the surface a few layers, you're going to see that. And of course, it doesn't say CIA is giving money to this. It would be their shell companies and all that. Maybe
the EFF.
Even NQTEL from the CIA. Who knows? But they're providing 90% of the budget to Tor. So Roger Dingledine described this as, at this point, his job was wearing two hats. One hat worked for activists to defend against surveillance, And the other was working with the federal paymasters at DARPA to maintain the infrastructure
It's like
that
that.
the activists were using.
It's like that episode of Sunny where he's like, see, I'm playing both sides.
That's exactly what it's
So
like.
I always
I always
but it's basically
it's exactly what it
it's
is.
no different than the concept of like providing information and misinformation at the same time, kicking it out and going, go. Here's the official narrative. Here's what's really going on. Go.
Yeah.
Where have we seen that before?
Except
They don't do
the
that.
whole Tor thing is an absolute lie. I mean, now granted, like local government agencies, they'd have no idea. Like you weren't going to get busted for drug trafficking in Phoenix, Arizona because
the system worked.
the system worked. Yeah.
Right.
But the CIA, the NSA, they had access.
Sure.
They could get in.
Back doors, if you will.
Back doors.
Back doors for the big D, you know what I mean?
So at this time, this is the birth of something we might call privatization of intelligence, right? The U.S. government offloaded the cost of global anonymity network onto the public while retaining it as a high-functioning tool for its own clandestine operations.
Yeah.
So basically like, hey, we're not in charge of this anymore. This is yours to the public, but we've got the key to the back door. So when the CIA tells Iranians today that Tor's their best bet for safety, you got to ask yourself, like, is this protection for Iranians, or are we just using this as a...
No, it's not. No, the answer is no. It's the fucking CIA. The answer is never. It's for your safety.
It's just another intelligence gathering tool.
Exactly.
Come on, dude.
But we did similar things in Syria. We gave classes. I think I'll get into that. So yeah, stay with me here. I'll tell you about later times we did this. So because by 2010, the U.S. State Department had a new name for this strategy, and they called it 21st Century Statecraft. So they're not just building back-end infrastructures around 2010 like Tor. Like they were building this entire digital arsenal. Under Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, the State Department transformed anonymity tools into what internal planners literally called digital crowbars. They literally called these tools digital crowbars. Damn. This is how we are going to hack into places we shouldn't be. This wasn't just about apps. Clinton, along with other advisors like Alec Ross and Jared Cohen, we'll talk about them in a little bit, they wanted to complement old school diplomacy with connection technologies, what they called them. They reached directly into foreign populations, bypassing their governments entirely. Because if you think of countries like Iran, like China, they've got their great digital firewall. You're not supposed to be able to get in or out of that.
Right.
But these are the tools that and it only makes sense. I'm sure China and everybody else does it too.
China.
So they called this the civilian power concept, their words, viewing ordinary citizens with smartphones as leverageable force against adversarial regimes. So how can we use their own citizens against them? You get like 10, 20, 30, 40, 100 activists inside China, and you can coordinate with these people. You can cause a lot of unrest, right?
What you're describing is basically a color revolution with the internet.
That's exactly.
It's kind of what you're saying.
It's a color revolution minus the color. Like the only thing that made it a color revolution is, hey, we're all wearing orange in this thing. That's the only thing that made it a color revolution.
Well, and the crazy thing to think about this is even if you're getting people who are anti-establishment, you're getting in 2000, when was this? You said 2009-ish?
We're at 2010 now.
You're getting technologically savvy anti-establishment people. Like you don't need the let's take up arms and fight back. Like you have people who can do it with the anonymity under the cloak of, you know, the guise of this and this onion routing and being able to be technologically savvy enough to navigate this to help the government out, I'm sure, a lot.
Yeah. So we're going to get to even like more ways that we use this in coming in the Arab Spring and the Syrian Revolution, or the Syrian Civil War. I'm sorry. So in 2010, Hillary Clinton stood in front of the museum.
I've been there, actually.
You've been to the museum?
I have actually been there.
Where's that? Museum of News?
It's in Washington, D.C., and it's a museum of how media has evolved. I've actually been there.
Cool. So like I saw them like
it for
I was
what
like,
it's worth.
that sounds like a real thing.
Not an exciting place.
Well, what were you, like 12?
I couldn't tell you.
Is that where you learned about Project Mockingbird?
That's exactly when.
Maybe.
Yeah, I went there on the tinfoil tour. Anyway.
Okay.
So Hillary Clinton, she's standing at the museum and gave a landmark speech. She declared that the freedom to connect was a fundamental human right.
Oh, no.
And I mean, she's not
wrong.
She's not wrong.
Sure.
But she's not doing it to say this some
use our tool to do it.
Yeah.
Here, it's safest.
So she compared modern firewalls to the Berlin Wall, which I mean, it sounds really good. And in a way, she's right.
Yeah.
And so a lot of these propaganda things, like, they sound so good because they ring true.
Kind of makes sense.
They absolutely ring true. Like, that makes a lot of sense, damn it. But they just don't really tell you what they're going after.
Tear down that wall.
Tear down that, Mr. Gorbachev. All right. So behind the scenes, the promise meant massive funding for soft power cyber weapons. The State Department's Bureau of Democracy Bureau of Democracy.
That sounds horrible.
It does. It really does.
Sounds
The
horrible.
Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor. So it's called the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights and Labor, DRL. Began operating like a Silicon Valley venture capital firm, financing dozens of disparate efforts to ensure that if a regime blocked one tool, 3 more would be popped up and waiting, right?
That sounds horrible.
Sounds like a Hydra, dude.
Yeah.
Exactly. So in 2012, they created the Open Technology Fund, OTF. This became the primary vehicle for pouring tens of millions into projects like Signal. Signal's supposed to be super safe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Signal,
Encrypted on both
Good
ends.
thing all of our
Exactly.
politicians use it.
and not created by the government at all.
No.
Except that they fund it. And even meshing network hardware, nicknamed Internet in a Suitcase, which you could smuggle across borders and set up independent wireless networks. It
Dude,
was
they got spy movies with that shit. And this was in 2012?
2012.
Yeah.
This is, but what are they using now?
Bombs.
Cell phones.
Starlink.
Starlink.
Starlink is internet in a box. Do you recall during the Iranian protests that they had?
Yeah, holy shit.
You saw people who were
They
clearly
shut down Starlink? Is that the one you're talking about?
No, they tried to, but they did at one point.
Yeah.
But you saw these intelligence agents. There was a couple videos you could tell these guys were clearly well coordinated. Don't know what agency they worked for, but they were clearly well funded and knew what the hell they were doing. They were causing all kind of chaos, and then they kind of sat up on the side of the building. They pop open what looked like an internet in a suitcase. If you look at this graphic here on A16, Adam, pull it up one more time. It looks similar to like what they're doing there, but it could just as easily have been a Starlink setup. Like, because you don't need internet in a suitcase if you have Starlink.
Yeah.
So what do you really think a person like Elon Musk isn't in bed with the government? He gets
No, we've talked about this before.
Exactly.
You don't get government contracts by not being in bed with the government.
This wasn't a question for you guys. This is
Yeah.
this is a question for people out there who think he's just this great old billionaire.
It's funny because like, you don't hear about him now, and everybody's probably out of sight, out of mind, like thinks he's out of the picture. But no,
Yeah.
come on.
Can we just take a moment and recognize the irony of when he was helping with the Doge stuff, and then you had all the protesters like spray painting swastikas on Teslas that were purchased by the people that were now protesting?
That's pretty funny.
It was my favorite moment of the last
Say that
year.
one more time. I don't think I followed you.
Everybody who was protesting Doge
Right.
were also all the people who thought years prior that
Electric
Elon
cars are the
was
way to
guy.
save the
Okay,
world.
gotcha,
So
gotcha.
anybody who drove a Tesla to the protests ended up getting their Teslas vandalized.
Well, he's
it
a
was
Nazi.
amazing.
He's a Nazi now.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Do you remember like people would put stickers on their
Oh,
cars
yeah.
like I bought this when he was still cool?
I bought this before
awesome.
Elon was president.
Yeah.
People would take like a Toyota sticker and put it over the Tesla sticker on their
And
car.
if I had a Tesla, if I had a Model S and I just paid $100,000 for, I'd do the same
Oh
thing.
my god, dude!
Dude, I
We
bought
live
this in
a clown world.
2018.
Yeah.
Don't burn
was
it.
So awesome.
So, going past the internet in a suitcase, like one of the most critical figures at this time was a guy named Jared Cohen. He was a prodigy hired to the State Department at age 24.
Damn.
Cohen eventually moved to Google afterwards to head something called Jigsaw, acting as a bridge between Washington and Silicon Valley. So Jigsaw is basically a hybrid think tank and technology incubator run by Google. It's founded in 2010 under the name Google Ideas, right? So it's basically leveraging internet technology to tackle thorny foreign policy and national security problems. Google is using its technology to tackle thorny foreign policy issues
that make
and
you
national
go,
security problems.
Okay.
So I just think that's pretty interesting there. And this guy, Jared Cohen, who started working at the State Department, went over to Google to head up Jigsaw. So you have this completely synergistic thing. Like you have the link right there.
I'm a firm believer that anybody who refers to the CIA as the State Department as a spy.
You're a spook.
If
100%.
you rely, if you call it the State Department,
Yeah,
you're
you're
a
a spy.
fucking spy.
You're a spy.
Otherwise, you're like, oh, I work for the CIA.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
cool, man.
Or if you actually work for the State Department, you'd say like, oh, I work for Ambassador so-and-so.
yeah, like, you would have it, but
yeah, State Department.
I work for the State Department.
Spook.
You're a
All
fucking
right.
spy.
All right. So Cohen's work at Jigsaw wasn't just theoretical because in 2012, during the Syrian civil war, he helped build a tool that mapped high-level defections from the Assad regime in real time. The goal wasn't just gathering data, it was perception management. By visually tracking the regime's crumbling support, the tool aimed to give confidence to the rebels.
Can we call perception management? Can we call that propaganda? Thank you.
I would call it propaganda.
All right. Just make sure we're on the same
Hang
page.
on.
But I'm going to call
I'm
it
just making sure I'm tracking.
I'm going to call it what the State Department
Sure.
calls it, which is perception
The
management.
spies. Got it.
Perception management. Wow, words do have meaning, don't they, boys?
Absolutely, they do.
Perception management.
So again, they're visually tracking the regime's crumbling support, or I mean, to boost up the rebels' morale, right? And also it kind of would encourage other officials to defect. Like, hey, look, General so-and-so did, and this person did, and this whole city block, they've defected.
Right.
Isn't that kind of like, you can manufacture those numbers any way you want, really?
Sure.
Right? They'll say, hey, look at how many people have defected.
Yeah.
You want to join too? And that kind of bolsters your spirit. It's like, yeah, me too. So you kind of, we talk about these revolutions all the time. And when you say that the government's involved, the CIA is involved, and like, no, they have people will push back on you and say like, no, they have real grievances there. And like, this is happening, that's happening. Like, yes, of course, you can't have a full-blown revolution if there's no grievances, but the flame might only be this big. What the government does through things like this, they come in and fan those flames.
Oh yeah, we sit there with a stick and go, "Come on."
Exactly.
Well, I gotta believe if you're a country too that is no stranger to war and you've experienced in any capacity of what that's like close to where your home is, I gotta believe in some degree, whether it's fear or support or distrust or whatever it is for your own government, that at some point you're gonna be like, man, I really want to be on the winning side this time.
Yeah.
Like, I want to support whatever is going to go right. Like, let's make sure if we can be a part of this, like, let's help out. And especially if you're getting inflated numbers,
yeah,
people are going to want to make sure that they're with the side that
plus,
looks like it's going to win.
There's safety in numbers too. Like maybe you really did hate the Assad regime, but you were not about, like, hey, like, I don't feel like dying in a protest today. But if you see like, oh, 5,000 other people, I see.
And you can do it anonymously.
They would use Facebook groups. So Facebook was involved in this. Google was in there. Like they could, and Twitter at the time, like they could look on their phone like, hey, there's a massive gathering right now. Like there's safety in numbers. I'm getting on board. Just kind of like what you were saying. So they had that app going there. They even partnered with Al Jazeera to broadcast visualizations of the defections into Syria. So like Al Jazeera, I believe is Qatar state-run media. They do actually a lot of good work. I've seen tons of their stuff. Yeah, it's really good. But again, state-run media by Qatar. So take it for what it's worth.
Sponsor us, by the way, Qatar. Thank you.
I'm still waiting on those Qatari books.
Let's go.
Yeah.
I need a plane.
Then there's Signal. This is touted at one point as the gold standard for secure grassroots communication. Signal's development was significantly bolstered by federal money via the OTF. So do you really think, I can't remember the guy's name.
Safe and secure.
I can't remember the guy's name that founded Signal, but he wasn't a Fed. But if you're significantly being funded by the United States government, or companies who are not advertising themselves as U.S. government, but an NGO or something like that, you really think you're not going to give them a backdoor?
Well, especially like you were saying with the Tor project, like 90% of their funds came from government funded programs. Like the government is not investing that level of money without some sort of kickback or return or access.
Even after they created it and gave it to the public, they still funded it by the tune of 90%. So by encouraging millions of people to use Signal, the government creates the vast digital haystack. So again, you've got like where you can hide our own spies in there. We have backdoors. Our guys can use this. Their own sensitive communications are buried in the noise, making it nearly impossible for states like Iran to identify high-value intelligence targets. And for the users that couldn't get onto the web at all, Google Ideas, seeded by uProxy, which is a social VPN that allowed users in closed countries like Iran or China to securely route their traffic through a trusted friend in the West, swapping their IP addresses to hide their true location from state firewalls.
And that Google Ideas, that stemmed from that Project Jigsaw.
I don't know if
Cohen.
I don't know if Google Ideas came from Jigsaw, but I think Jigsaw was previously Google Ideas.
The predecessor. Okay, okay.
So one and the same, yes. So yeah, they developed uProxy, which is a VPN to where you can get around China's Great Firewall and all that stuff. So it's government funded. You know who owns, I think, like 90% of VPNs? Israeli companies.
I was going to say Israel.
Yeah. So you look at the arsenal, like you have the defection trackers, the internet in a suitcase, the federally funded encryption, which kills me, man. It just kills me. The picture becomes a little more clear. The U.S. just didn't want people to talk. It wanted people to build an infrastructure of revolution inside Tehran, right? And in 2011, in Syria, in 2011, they got exactly what they were looking for. They got the swarm. This is about the Arab Spring now. So in 2011, the digital arsenal was no longer a collection of tools in a DC lab. It was a catalyst for the Arab Spring. This was an era of the, quote, swarm, a new kind of warfare that used social media and anonymity tools to create centralized mass movements that move faster than any government could respond. So this is what we were talking about. Like you see on a Facebook group, like, hey, protest over here. Like, hey, we're setting fire to the police building over here. We did all that stuff.
Yeah.
All that, like, and again, the Arab Spring, real issues they had, but we helped them connect. We even brought people over here from, like, we took leaders from Egypt. Well, I think it kicked off big time in Egypt. I think Tunisia is where it started, where the guy set himself on fire. It's like a grocery cart guy set himself on fire. But we would bring people over here that were kind of like, I don't want to say influencers, but whatever a predecessor to an influencer is. It was a influential person in their community. We brought them over here, showed them how to use these tools, how to use Tor, how to get on the dark web, how to use things like Signal and the Facebook groups. We showed them how we were setting everything up. So they go back and they start to, what is that old thing? Each one teach one. They would go back and they would teach their networks how to use these things. Now, all of a sudden, you have highly organized networks inside of these countries that can talk to each other outside of the official government channels. Like, Egypt's not allowed to track them, or they can't figure out how to track them.
And I may have missed it. I was trying to look because I am not familiar with the Arab Spring. Did you explain what that was?
I did not.
Okay.
If you got it pulled up, go for it.
Yeah, so the Arab Spring was a wave of pro-democracy protests and uprisings that took place in the Middle East and North Africa beginning in 2010 and 2011, and challenging some of the region's, entrenched authoritarian regimes.
Did it start in Tunisia with that guy set himself on fire?
It did. It began with protests in Tunisia and Egypt. I'm sorry, in Tunisia and Egypt when they toppled their regimes in quick succession.
I can't remember what it was in Tunisia, but this guy was he had like a fruit cart or something like that. And basically he was like tired of the government telling him what to do and the taxes and everything. He just had enough and just set himself on fire one day.
Oh, what a horrible way to
Same
go.
dog.
Yeah, crazy. Remember the guy that wasn't too long ago? Who was the guy that set himself on fire in DC? Was it DC or New York?
Did he, John? Did he, dude?
Yeah, the guy who threw out the pamphlets and lit himself on fire.
That's another episode.
Yep.
Did he not?
I got some shit on that one,
Oh, my
dog.
God.
That's another episode.
That's going to have to go on the conspiracy channel.
Yeah. Holy shit.
So think of this as a direct attack on the state's OODA loop, like Egypt's OODA loop, so which is observe, orient, decide, and act. So by using tools like Facebook and Twitter to coordinate in real time, activists were able to swarm centers of power from multiple directions at once, leaving the military and police completely disoriented and paralyzed. They had no time to react because that was such a new tool back then. Facebook groups, Twitter, like communicating like that, like you can't keep up with that shit.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't know what's going on. At the center of Egypt, at the center of this in Egypt was a Google executive, another Google executive
That's so
named
weird.
YL Ghanem. I don't know how you pronounce that. Ghanem, this is one of the words I have a hard time saying. Anonymously.
Nailed it.
Thank you. I have to say it very slowly. Created a Facebook page called We Are All Khaled Said. I think he was the guy that set himself on fire in Tunisia.
It says he was brutally killed by police.
All right. Even better.
Yeah.
So We Are All Khaled Said, named after a young man brutally killed by the police. If I would have read my own fucking shit. I had the Tunisian man.
No, the Tunisia guy was Mohammed Boualzazi or something like that.
Boualzazi.
I'll look it up.
So basically, another Google executive here, Google executive, he created the Facebook page, We're All Khaled Said, named after a man brutally killed by police. The page became a pro-democratic space, educating millions of Egyptians and gradually softening them to the idea of mass activism until the moment was right to move from virtual to the real world. Again, just like slowly pecking away, fanning those flames.
Crazy.
The Tunisia man's name was Mohammed Bouazizi.
Bouazizi.
I might not be
I
pronouncing
think you
that
got it.
correctly. I did my best.
But for the movement in Egypt to survive, it needed to stay invisible to the state surveillance, right? You can't just have this movement out in the public where the government knows exactly what you're doing. And that's where the evangelist came in. Jacob Applebaum. The public face of the Tor project toured the Middle East between 2008 and 2009, just before the uprising, training activists in Egypt, Syria, and Tunisia on how to use Tor to bypass state firewalls. If you see a guy like this in your country, how do you let him in?
Yeah, no shit.
It must have been like super top secret back then that he worked for the State Department.
Well, and even, I mean, this was 2008, 2009,
Oh, so Jacob,
2012.
yeah. No, in 2008 and 2009, he came before the Arab Spring. So like maybe they had no idea what was going on.
Think about it. Like we get so used to thinking of like information sharing in the internet and even cell phone technology being what it is today.
Mm-hmm.
Like in 2008,
Yeah,
it was nowhere near what, I mean, we were still using like Google, like Maps.
But like this guy
We weren't
had
using Google Maps.
But
You
this
were
guy
using-
had to enter the country. They had to like know who he is.
Sure, but I'm just saying, like, and they probably, obviously, their governments have better surveillance equipment, obviously, than we knew about then, right? They're always 10 to 20, 30, 50 years ahead. Whatever.
I'm wondering if he had a nice piece of cover from the State Department.
Like a mask?
Yes. So Applebaum was a salesman for a piece of ex-Department of Defense tech. He wasn't some random guy coming into your country.
Right.
You used to sell Department of Defense technology.
Not vacuums.
Not
Not fire extinguishers.
You weren't a Kirby vacuum salesman.
Defense tech. Yeah.
So at events like Arab Bloggers Conference in Beirut, he taught activists how to use Tor bridges, unlisted entry nodes that allowed users to reach the network even if the government was actively blocking it.
Damn.
So the impact was explosive. During the Egyptian revolution, the number of Tor users skyrocketed, growing fivefold in the days just before the government hit the kill switch on the internet. By 2012, the focus shifted to Syria. This is where their revolution and civil war started. Here, the collaboration between Silicon Valley and Washington became even more direct. Jared Cohen, now at Google Ideas, helped build an interactive mapping tool to track high-level defections from the Assad regime in real time. So he had left the State Department at this, and now he's working for Google. So we talked about that a little bit before. How did I get back to here again? So it wasn't just data collection, it was propaganda. Like the mission was to become, it was to be, did I really come all the way back to this?
I'm following you.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah,
like, we went through this. I must have doubled down on this.
Oh. Yeah. Huh.
So basically, like what happens when this swarm, I get the swarm of users that are using Twitter and everything, and they're overwhelming all of these government buildings. Like what happens when it's not a we'll go to 8 to 30. What happens when it's not a grassroots movement anymore, but a carefully managed operation run by cutouts of U.S. government? So to understand that, look at the color revolutions, which you were talking about earlier, Adam. Like this is something we do as a government. This isn't the first time we did this during the Arab Spring. Like we've gotten pretty freaking good. So to understand this, to understand how the CIA plays the long game, you got to understand the theory. It's not just about random outbursts of anger. It's about calculated mathematical approach to regime change. Just like we talked about, this doesn't happen by accident. They know exactly what they're doing. At the heart of this is a guy named Gene Sharp. They called him the Machiavelli of nonviolence.
I thought that was Trump.
Machiavelli of nonviolence?
Yeah.
No new wars, baby.
President of peace.
No new wars.
Machiavelli of
I saw a thing on
nonviolence.
Saturday night. I have a real quick interjection. He says, I said no new wars. I didn't say no new war. There's going to be one. We got to do one.
Yeah.
I was like,
Damn
all right, fair enough.
He's so right.
So
Dang it.
Gene Sharp is the Machiavelli of nonviolence. Gene Sharp, who wasn't a spy, he didn't work for the government. He was a scholar, founded the Albert Einstein Institution. His core insight was simple but revolutionary. Power is not monolithic and only exists as long as the population obeys.
True.
You should, like, his book, he has I'll tell you in a second, hold on. If you strategically withdraw that cooperation through mass noncompliance, the state, no matter how many tanks it has, will paralyze and collapse. You think about that. Like,
Yeah, you need compliance.
Yeah. In the United
From the majority.
States, we have 350 something million. Good luck stopping us all if we decide to gather together, right? So in 1993, Gene Sharp wrote a 93-page manual called From Dictatorship to Democracy. It contains a legendary appendix of the 198 methods of nonviolent action.
You've talked about this before in previous shows.
I have.
Yeah.
And if you actually go through and read some of the methods, you're like, oh, and you start to see protests and like things where they say Antifa's involved. You'll look and like, oh, I recognize that. And it doesn't have to be a government movement. Like this manual's been out there for a while.
Yeah.
Like everybody has access to it. I found it on a site that is explicitly for nonviolent protests. Like that's where I originally downloaded it, from a website. Everyone's got access to this.
And started noticing everything else was kind of matching the different,
everything
movements.
they do. You're like, again, they're not being violent, to like them singing and doing like plays and wearing costumes and mocking. Like that's a big one. Like, you're like, why are these guys out there in costumes? They're just they're not doing anything. Like, no, they're agitating the shit out of people.
They just had a Renee Good, Alex Preddy like dance tribute in the middle of the street and reenacting everything, almost mocking it.
I saw that.
You will find that.
Wild.
You'll find that in the 198 methods of nonviolent
Dude, are we
action.
being color revolutioned right now? Is that what you're saying?
Well, like I've said before, like we've talked. This isn't an Antifa episode, but when people say Antifa is not an organization, like it could be.
It's an idea.
It could be
an organization.
It absolutely could be.
Dude, shut up.
But anyway, like you have these movements, like they're out there doing a dance, they're in costumes and stuff like that. The people in Portland who are literally wearing costumes are like, they're not hurting anybody. He's in a bear costume. Like they're trying to get a specific reaction.
Right.
Because once you get cops out there start beating people, that's when more people come in.
Right. Yeah.
It's like,
holy moly.
They're doing this for a reason.
That's crazy.
This isn't a political statement for or against any of that, but it's a method.
Right.
So we're talking about everything from symbolic colors to catchy slogans. That he does that in there. He like the color is in there. creation of parallel governments. I think we've talked about this before. Adam, have we talked about this before Steve came back with the CIA playbook that they were using in Nicaragua?
Yeah.
On creating all these parallel governments. You get buy-in from not state officials, but people like lawyers and doctors, people that are high up in the community. So it's the part 1 field manual for what we know as a color revolution. The first real proof of concept was in 2000 in Serbia, the bulldozer revolution. A youth movement called Otpor, which means resistance, took Sharp's manual and turned it into a brand. This Otpor, they now will go to other countries and teach people how to do these revolutions.
No shit.
Yes. Look up Otpor. Anybody out there, look up Otpor in their organization.
OTPOR.
OTPOR. So they didn't just protest, they marketed. They used stylized clenched fist as a logo, graffitied it thousands of times across Belgrade. That's a pretty cool logo.
I've seen that logo before recently in the United States.
Have you? Well, there it is.
The summer of 2020, it was the whole post the fist.
Started in 2000, bulldozer revolution in Serbia.
Crazy.
So again, they graffitied it thousands of times across Belgrade and used street theater to make the regime look ridiculous. They're trained by Sharp's associate, Colonel Robert Helvey, on how to treat the revolution like a cool lifestyle product to recruit youth. It's the cool thing to do, man.
Yep.
Well, and when you get into these revolutions, it's always the young because they have less to lose.
And they're more anti-establishment. They're easier influence.
You're not getting somebody like me who's 40,
they want to be like their
47
parents.
kid. Yeah. So, but how does a group of college students in Serbia get the funding to topple a president?
Google.
This is where maybe.
Oh, okay.
But this is where all the cutouts come in. In the world of intelligence, a cutout's a buffer. It's an intermediary that allows U.S. government to influence a foreign country while maintaining plausible deniability. Think the Open Society Foundation, National Endowment for Democracy. Think of all of those things.
Like an NGO kind of a thing?
Exactly.
Kind of like what they were shutting down earlier this year all over the world?
USAID, things like that.
That was the first one I thought of.
So the heavy hitter here is the National Endowment for Democracy. It was created in 1983 under Ronald Reagan. The NED was designed to do something overtly that the CIA had been doing for decades. So the CIA couldn't do it anymore because all of a sudden you look like, hey, that's the CIA. But if we get a company to do it or an organization, hey, man, it wasn't us. It was those guys. It was the National Endowment for Democracy. Be very leery of any group that has democracy.
Has democracy in their name.
Really?
So it funnels millions of dollars to political parties, labor unions, and NGOs under the banner of democracy promotion. The NED acts as the white gloves for the State Department. It allows the U.S. to pick favorites in foreign elections, train opposition leaders, and build a civilian army without a single American soldier crossing a border. Plausible deniability is a pretty cool weapon. So this is a modern iteration of what Frank Wisner, the CIA's original chief political warfare consultant or officer, called the mighty Wurlitzer. Wisner was a high society lawyer who built a network of front organizations, labor unions, student groups, and even literary magazines that he could play like a pipe organ. At the push of a button, he could trigger a specific propaganda tune anywhere in the world. They're talking about this, when did I say this? The Wurlitzer was? This is in the 50s or 60s.
Oh,
60s,
weird.
Adam.
Super fucking weird.
So Wisner's Wurlitzer famously crashed in 1967 when its funding was exposed. Follow the money, people.
Yeah, no
Follow the money. I don't care what we're talking about. 99 times out of 100, follow the money will get you to the truth. It just always does.
Yeah.
But the model didn't die. It just moved, right? You can't kill this off. This is a good plan. We're just going to move it around, right? It shifted from labor unions and magazines to digital privacy nonprofits. Today, when we see organizations like Tor or Signal, which are marketed as anti-establishment but rely on government for nearly half of their funding, we see the Wurlitzer in 21st century digital form. The goal remains the same: systematic chaos. Overwhelm the government's decision-making loop with unpredictable swarms of protesters, manufacture crisis, and then move in for the coup.
I think everybody can understand the whole manufactured crisis thing because I think there's been a lot of examples of that whether you believe, don't believe, there's been examples that people have tried to linking to certain situations in the last 5 years.
Absolutely. I think it's pretty cool that a lot of people start to see this. They can kind of looking hey, wait a minute, I've seen that before. Wait, they might not be 100% correct and might call it something wrong, but fundamentally, their eyes are opening up and starting to see this isn't
Just
grassroots.
Thinking critically, going,
exactly.
Hold on a minute.
What's crazy too is the whole focus of the show so far has been what America and the CIA and our powers that be have been doing. We're not the only people to have figured this out.
Right. Exactly.
So it makes me think about the BLM protests and the Antifa stuff and the like we've seen a lot of ICE protests lately, and it
Yep.
makes me start thinking like, man, like I'm sure some of it's organic, but I'll bet you a decent chunk of it is at the very least somebody taking advantage of the situation, fanning the flames.
Well, that's the point, Adam. It's all organic. There's
Yeah.
real grievances that people have.
Absolutely, right.
People have real grievances with the Trump administration, with what
Yeah.
ICE is doing. But what other governments are fanning that flame,
Exactly.
right?
Well, and that's the scary part is I would be more inclined to say it's not 100% organic, and they're preying on the people who are organic.
Right.
They're
Yes.
inciting these
Yes.
instances and creating these instances to, recruit the organic people that actually do have the grievances.
Well, during the Syrian civil war, there was like, they do. Like when I say fanning the flames, it's not just like, hey, sending a message or getting people to meet in a public square. They will literally do things like this has been all but 100% proven. They will shoot people in protests and blame it on the government to get the people even more upset.
Yeah.
Like this is, like
It's
I said,
wild.
all but proven. They've done this during the Arab Spring, specifically in Syria. So
That's so crazy.
yeah, they will take advantage. Sometimes you need a little blood to get the revolution
Yeah.
going, you know?
Yeah.
Like when that guy said that we are all now Khaled, whatever. Like, hey, did that guy organically get beaten by police? Or was that a few guys dressed as cops that just beat the guy to
That's
death?
the
Yeah.
scary part, dude, is how hard would it be for the guy who
hard at
shot
all.
Alex Preddy to be a low-key plant, and they said, hey, man, get in there dressed as an ICE agent and shoot
Well,
anybody.
I think the Alex Preddy, just because there was so many videos, like
I think it was
it's
legit.
getting harder and harder to do these
yeah,
things,
I
but they're
think it
just
was-
getting
I think it was
tricky.
real. But the point is, like, how hard would it fucking be to
Well, think
put
about
one guy in
So think
there?
about that, like what you just said and what you just said. Think about the countless videos we've seen that are not real,
Yeah.
Sure.
just of people that look like they're a cop and they're resisting ICE or they're protesting ICE or they're
Yeah.
all these different situations. You can create whatever situation you wanted, but now you have that information, that digital warfare that you have to combat against, but recruiting people who have that organic feeling and actually do have grievances with it, just recruiting more people with fake videos.
Well, if you wanted, I won't say this is what's happening or will happen, but you can imagine what can happen. This is purely conjecture here. OpenAI just signed a contract with the Pentagon.
Of course they did.
So what does that look like in a foreign country where you want to fan those flames?
Right.
I'm just like,
man.
You could just take the next logical step.
What we were talking about last week or maybe the week before, how there were pictures coming out of Epstein alive and well in Israel, but like all
Fake.
it took was to zoom out and see the Gemini logo on it.
Right.
Like everybody knows that's fake.
But
like,
thankfully, all it takes, you saw, like the ones I saw didn't have the Gemini logo
Yeah.
on it. You saw the original that had the Gemini logo. I'm like, oh, of course.
Yeah.
Kind of like the one I saw of all the Iranian protester body bags. Like, thankfully, I saw the one that had the Gemini logo that somebody forgot to crop.
Yeah.
But once people get more sophisticated with this stuff, it's going to be harder and harder to tell.
If the growth of AI has been like it's been, when we started this show,
The
it
Will
was
Smith
that
video,
chonky video of Will Smith eating spaghetti, and now we're here. What's it going to be in 6 months? Dude?
Yeah.
It's a breeding ground for doing this all over the world, and like I said, not just for our government and other countries. It's going to be World War III is almost going to be completely digital, and it's going to be a war for the minds of the citizenry at this point.
Well, even think about the gap between, let's say it took a week to figure out that Epstein video or the Epstein picture alive and well in Israel was fake because of the Gemini watermark. How many hundreds, if not more, of millions of people have seen that and already decided their stance on it?
Yeah, they moved on.
Regardless.
Well, I think it's a Mark Twain quote, like the truth will travel around the world like 10 times before, or a lie will travel around the world 10 times before the truth has a chance to move or something like that. But that's it. So I'll end this with saying, like, so the next time you see the CIA out there saying, hey, we're here to help, or you see a protest in the street, you just
that's not that.
kind of start asking yourself, is this organic? Is what I'm seeing actually reality? Like, dig a couple layers deeper and try to like follow the money. We'll talk about follow the money later with the Iranian war, but for now, I'll end that segment with that.
A lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth is putting on its shoes.
That's it.
Mark Twain.
Damn.
What year was that?
He said, well, the spirit of the quote started in 1710, Jonathan Swift. Falsehood flies and the truth comes limping after it.
1710
Was the root of the quote, and it's been kind of rephrased through the years, but
now
1710.
Now just times that by light speed
Yeah.
because of social media. Like,
Yeah,
It's crazy.
that's it. All right.
Holy moly, dude.
All right. We'll talk about some more of these subjects next time. And cut.
Do you want me to hit record or